There we go. So for today, I thought we would talk about essentially fall ratings are here, and we're getting kind of organized for the fall book. So I thought we would talk about some advanced GSelector scheduling techniques. Before I forget, as always, don't forget field technician services are up and running. We're looking for beta users for GSelector 4.9.0 as well as Zeta 5.20.1. Those are the brand new versions. Some really, really cool stuff in Zeta as well if you want to beta test that. If you're working from home, we want to see your photos. We'll give you some goodie bags as well. And of course, RCS Academy, you can always get GSelector and Zeta certified. That's brand new. That, of course, is online at rcsworks.com/RCS Academy. And, speaking of which, you can also go to the archive of all of these nice, fancy resources for you. They're available on rcsworks.com/RCS-archive. Or RCS-live, I'm sorry. Hey, V, if you want to post that link for the archive there. So RCS-live. That's in there, too. So thank you for hanging out here. We got some really, really cool stuff coming up down the pipeline as we're still waiting to get. I had some scheduling conflicts with the set replication versus Zcast. We got teasing GSelector 4.9.0, teasing new features in 5.20.1, and I'm working on some cool stuff with the background recorder over in Zeta, as well as some cool things in GSelector as well. So if you have any questions, as always, we're here monitoring the comments section. I got my little phone and my Facebook open as well. So if you have any questions, anything with GSelector or just some Zeta or Zeta Cloud stuff, I'm more than happy to help you out as well. Before I forget too, by the way, very slight uptick we've seen and some cryptoware stuff going down the pipeline. Not, GSelector stuff. It's just, usually it involves somebody brings in a USB drive and all of a sudden it's like, whoops. So just be aware, we do have for disaster recovery, we have the GSelector Data Exchange Recovery Console for you. Whatever data exchange you take, we take the most recent backup and we save a copy for you on our cloud drive. So if you get into a pickle, you can go over there, we can restore the latest backup. But obviously if you call us up and that backup is a year old, sorry, not much we can do about that. So just a friendly reminder, take your backups. It's always good. It's free. It's part of your contract. Data exchange, send. And the difference here is going to be the current data is your entire backup. Your entire database. Stations are station specific. If you want to know which one is best, just know that if you have a current data, we can always take a single station from that current data. So in my professional opinion, current data always works. It's your best bet. And again, it's free and it's part of your contract, so might as well use it. So me personally, when I was a PD, I used to go every Friday at 3 p.m. Right before I went on the air. I would go and send myself a data exchange, and that way I knew that every Friday I had a backup of that week's music. So just throwing it out there too for you. For today, we are talking about GSelector and advanced scheduling techniques. The way I want to incorporate this is talking about that music director in you and that music day where essentially you have to go make your music changes and some other settings as well. So very simply put, this is my GSelector here, and as of course, if you have any questions, feel free to comment on here. I'll be more than happy to answer them for you live in real time. So what we're going to do is we are going to go first. I just want to reiterate the category changer. That's right here. Don't forget the category changer. You can change up to the categories here, up to 9 categories, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You can always hit F7 in these windows as well to see the history of these songs. You can also hit F7 to disappear that. And of course, don't forget all these columns you can modify, and you have the options here to select the browse list, and those can be defaults, user specific, all of that good stuff. So, and just again to reiterate, this could be one of those, you drag it over here, and you take this song, drag it over here, and you save, and boom, those changes are done just like that. So we're talking about, working, your categories on the fly. The category changer is a great asset to include in here. And of course, if you have a gold-based station, you want to have something like, spins, you can put that in here as well. From there, I want to talk about some optimizations during the scheduling process. That's a really, really cool thing. And it's actually not enabled by default Let me rephrase that. The tab optimization is not enabled by default. That's going to be in here, enabled optimizations. I'm running a blank here for 1 second. I'm bringing there. Enable optimization options. So that's, of course, setup, station, features, advanced, enable optimizations. So by default, GSelector has, and you'll see it will appear right over here, the goals optimizations tab. You'll know it's not enabled because you'll see recycling and nothing else. That's just very simply put. So when you enable optimizations, what you're doing here is you're really giving yourself an opportunity to control what GSelector is already doing in regards to that optimization, right? Let's see, I'm just checking my thing here. Hey, I think you guys are checking in. There's a lot of K's in your name. I'm so sorry. I was going to say thank you for checking in, but there's a lot of K's in your name. I'm just going to butcher your pronunciation. But yes, I have the comments open over here if you want to comment and ask your questions accordingly. Optimizations. Now there's two tabs here, very similar to that of the priority list. Okay, so we have the definition and we have the assignment. The idea here is we define the optimization, then we assign it to certain categories and certain day parts. By default, GSelector already does some of these optimizations. This is a way for you to essentially expand, have more control on that. So I'm going to hit the little plus icon here, and you can see there's my edit optimizations, and I can essentially give it a name. So it'll be a test name for right now. And I have the optimization options. You can see there's multi-shot, floating, none, and legacy. I'm going to start with the multi-shot, right? So the multi-shot gives you sub-options there, light, medium, heavy, and auto. The multi-shot, the way it works is essentially those are the disabled and slotted categories, the ones that are essentially have very, very high turnover, not a lot of songs in the category. The way the multi-shot works is it will respect your core attributes, your core rules. That's yesterday's song, minimum separation, and vocalist separation. So what it will do essentially is, I'm going to pick Taylor Swift just off the top of my head. You have Taylor Swift, she'll have, let's do Cardi B instead. Cardi B's got a couple songs out, and you want to make sure that you're making sure the vocalist is doing its best to spread, but also we have disabled and slotted goals in the mix as well. So what it will do essentially is if I have 5 songs, right? And it's going to do its best to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so on and so forth. That's what disabled and slotted does. What multi-shot does, it gives you the flexibility for GSelector to be allowed to just alter one position. So again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What will happen here will be 1, 2. You know what? This is going to violate a vocalist minimum separation on Cardi B. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 4. But then I still have the disabled and slotted setting enabled in GSelector. So I'll have 1, 2, 4, and then GSelector knows to go back to 3. So 1, 2, 4, 3, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Got all that? So it gives GSelector a way to kind of just flexible one position, but then I got to return back to what it was. So it's a really, really cool function if you have that. And again, this is for the multi-shot that respects the yesterday song, minimum separation, or vocal separation that is defined by your rules and goals inside that priority list. So Emmett, Larry, Pablo, thank you for checking in, guys. I appreciate it. Again, any questions, let me know. So there's some settings here. There's the custom setting. This is, if you really want to get into deep on this, of course, the F1 dynamic help is going to help you describe all these options. It really, if you know what you're doing, you can go in here. Otherwise, I would recommend just kind of reading up on it first, but you can get away with just doing some light, medium, heavy, or automatic in this multi-shot. They all have different settings on there based on your library and your turnover. It's really on you how you want to interpret that, but there's a really quick set and forget it setting. But just be aware, you know, the disabled and slotted, by default, you want to have it play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? By default. So if you want that staircase pattern, if you're telling GSelector I'm allowed you to move a position 1 or 2, you're telling GSelector ignore the staircase pattern I want you to do and take a primary approach about moving this position by 1 or 2. So if you are a very, very stickler for that staircase pattern, just keep that in mind. The next option there is going to be the floating and legacy options. Now, the terminology here is just very slight, but there's one very, very distinct difference between legacy and floating. These are the opposite of multi-shot. These are big categories, more than 8-hour turnovers, right? So big categories, more than 8-hour turnovers. What I want to do essentially is this goes based on the scoring. So in GSelector schedules a log. Remember the 3 steps of scheduling a log in GSelector is plotting, scheduling, optimization. In the plotting phase, we look at each day part and say, well, I should really play you here. The scheduling will go and assign that plotting a score, and then the optimizations will go back and take a look and see, is this truly the best scoring song after I schedule the entire date range as defined in the scheduler. What legacy and what floating does is it allows GSelector to, during the optimization stage, find a better song. Now, the big difference here is legacy and light is enabled by default in GSelector without even touching anything. This is one of the first steps in the optimization process. And so by default, you don't have to do anything with here. It's already there. It's already in there. Don't worry about that. And then if you want to make it a little more aggressive, you can go and put that medium or heavy. And what will happen is during the scheduling process, if I pick, let's say, a primary gold record, I like to use this example for classic hit stations. So if I'm a 70s primary song, primary category, if you will, when I schedule, GSelector under the legacy rule will go back into the optimization process and look at that entire category to see if there's a better song within that 70s gold power category to choose from. If it sees a better scoring song, GSelector will swap it out and then keep going down the list, so on and so forth. So that's legacy. By default, it's enabled. It's light, legacy light. If you want to make it more strong or medium, you can definitely do that. It's going to go kind of the dig process, how far down it's going to go and look for that better scoring song. Now, the opposite of that, and this is more of a modern GSelector approach, is the floating optimization. And you can see I have some extra fields here. I have the name I can give it, I have the floating option, I have this floating group optimized by hour and optimizing strength, again, light, medium, and strong. Legacy, once it's scheduled, will find a similar song in that same category, okay? Same category. Floating, I assign the categories to the floating groups. So you can see here I have floating group 1, right? I just give it a name 1. There's no kind of, this is a numbering or alphanumeric scheme. This can be gold records, power records, whatever you want to call it. I just called it 1 because it's just a test here. And so I just call it 1. I have it on light. I can do it by the hour. It's up to you. But after I assign that floating group 1, I can go to my assignment tab. I can hit the plus. Very, very similar, almost identical to that of the priority list. I have my drop down here of which optimization I'm talking about. So I have floating group 1. The difference here, I can select my desired day parts. I can choose which category groups are part of this floating group. So going back to that classic hits example, okay? I can essentially create a floating group between 70s power, 70s secondary, and 70s filler. And I can essentially say, fluctuate between that 70s category so I know that in that position, I'm always getting a 70s record, okay? Versus if I wanted to create a floating group, let's say primary songs, secondary songs, and this could be primary 70s, primary 80s, primary 90s, I can say make sure there's always a strong testing song in that position versus, a secondary or a filler. So what I did personally for this, the way that I interpreted it on my end, and I had again, I like to have a gold record category with primary, secondary, and filler, right? So what I did is, obviously primary is primary. I don't like to touch that. I like to that's my primary goal. So what I did is I created a floating group based on secondary and filler recurrence, and then secondary and filler gold. So I had floating group recurrence, floating group gold records. and I can essentially assign boom and boom. So these two categories here. And what GSelector will do is it will try to go and essentially, if I have a low scoring song in C and there's a better scoring song in O, I'm going to schedule the O category and then keep going down my list. And I think you're wondering, well, what's going to happen to that song in C? Well, obviously, if that song in C didn't get played, the next position that has an O, most likely, it's going to then flip that back out, right? Because we're going down the list, trickling down the entire day. Thank you, Nick. I somehow got my, I don't know if Windows Update or something was in here, but my USB mic stopped working for some odd reason. So I'll try to talk louder and go from there. But thanks, Nick. I appreciate that. Yeah, it just happened yesterday. For some reason, my normal input just completely stopped working. I don't want to mess it up right now, but we'll go from there. So essentially, we have here, let's see. So that's going to be the floating group. We did that. Let's see, we're talking about the optimizations, category group changer. Let's talk about the consideration window, if you will. So the consideration window has a lot of options here. If I go to the on air on the very, very top, and let me know, Nick, if that's better, if I'm yelling a little louder over here. And so from here, there's an option right here for the consideration window options. That's in here. And it's actually a really, really cool window because you can actually customize how you want this to look. Do I want songs that are most rested by region, by day part? Do I want to show packets? Do I want to quick replace? Do I want to show the bands and hour restrictions or no demand in there? It's all customizable. So you can go in here. I can hit K on there. Don't forget, I have my own consideration window as well. So I can go here and I have my song consideration window format as well as my non-song. It could be in there. So that could be links. And I can also customize this here with modified columns. And then at that point in time, I can see. So you can see I have the songs here or band. I have 0. If I don't want to see those, I can do show bands. And I can just go here and escape out of my consideration window. Can go back in. And that should be, they had both of them in here. I'll do no demand. And go back and just refresh that window right here. And you can see there's some other options in there too as well. So there's just some really cool things here in regards to what you can do in regards to this lowest score and a whole bunch more. So that's in there as well, just so you know. Oh, kicks. That's what we were talking about. Thank you. I got distracted. So the kick override. Goals, categories. The 1-2 down arrow is the category group settings, right? So when you go in here, you'll see that I have some disabled and slotted options in here. Very, very briefly, default is default. Group song, of course, if you have group songs in there, all songs shows the entire songs in the category. So everything that has all songs will be taken into consideration. Disabled and slotted, of course, is that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that we talked about. And the pass order weighted, that's for your artist and vocalist spread. If you have something like Maroon 5 in a Hot AC format, and there's so many Maroon 5 gold records, you can essentially have a pass order weighted. So as I'm going down the list, you can see essentially that's got higher rated, right? That's a higher rated artist. So if I have, let's say, 15 Maroon 5 songs, and I have one, I wear my sunglasses at night, the one-hit wonder, if you will, it's going to give a little more love to the Maroon 5 records the further down we are in the pass order list. So if we have disabled and slotted, or if we just have essentially kick in here, those are the two options for how you can get to the kick override window. What happens here is we get that staircase pattern. Now, I know you're probably watching this on your end, and you're probably talking about, oh, it's really, really small to see. I know it's from my screen to the Facebook Live onto your screen, but you can see there's a staircase pattern right here along the way. See that? And so what happens here is I have automatic kick and manual kick. Hey, Nate, what's the right decision? Honestly, it's both. It's whatever you want to do. Now, I have my entire day parts here all lined up, so I don't have to worry about necessarily having, any kind of gaps in my programming. If I wanted to, I can do to manual kick. You can see that I clearly have very poor, numbers here in regards to everything's all stackable in this window. What I want to do is if I have manual, I just click on something, usually during the overnight hours, that's what you want to do. I'll hit plus on here, and you can see you can really start to work out where everybody's going. So I think it's 3 was the proper one here, but you can essentially start working out 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, develop that staircase pattern where you want to do it. If it works for you, great, do automatic kick, and it's awesome. That's fantastic, right? If I have another option here, I'll go to B's to show you kind of more of a different, again, you can see here's the staircase pattern right here as I'm going down the list. GSelector will do its best to essentially look at your entire day part and do some kicks there. But what happens if this kick is middle and you have nothing in the middle over here? I believe I have my RCS alternative. I believe this is where I have my night powers as well. Let me go through and check my thing. We're looking good over there. So if I go again, goals, balance, goals, categories, 1, 2 down arrow. That's going to give me here, again, my power nights and power slotted. So disabled, slotted, give them a kick override. And you can see here that I have some elements, I have some day parts that are just not being utilized. Think of that category at night where it's a power category. Me personally, I had a top 40 hot AC hybrid. So at nights, I was a little more aggressive in top 40 than during the day when I'm at the dentist office, if you will. And so at that point in time, what you want to do is essentially, I can use the automatic kick, but GSelector's not really going to realize, it's going to pretend that this is all into play. And when you have certain categories like, for example, Sunday morning, if they have, let's say, that 1 hour where there's nothing in there, a lot of times people like to go and essentially skip that over, if you will. And you don't have to do that here. And so what you can do is just pretend that if I have one category here, so I have A, B, C, I have 3 songs in the category. So very simple math, like if I start here, I'm going to go to my kickstart day, which is Monday. So this is B, right? So in theory, this is C, A, B, C, A, B, C, A, B, C, A, B, C, A, B. That should be C, which it is. Fantastic. Of course, you can see it's an automatic kick. And then I keep going down the row from there and there and there. So if I have a manual kick here, you can see again I have really bad numbers. So there's my A, right? So B, C, A, 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 B. Fantastic. We can then go down here and go from across the way. Now, it just so happens that this turnover is not very good. So what I can do here is, well, I don't care about what happened here, right? Even though the B's next to play because A was the last to play, it doesn't matter. This song hasn't played in all 12 hours. So I hit the little plus here, and now I can start really looking at this turnover here, and I can develop a staircase pattern. And it doesn't matter that I start at 7 p.m. because there's nothing here. So if you do have that Sunday break inside your category, what you want to do is, it's going to look at that and just continue on the next one. That might mess up your rotations for the entire day. If it were me, I would just use that hour and skip to the very next position. So just very simply put, if this is A, there's a blank, and this is B, I would kick this hour till I get to essentially B, so it's A, blank, B, or I can do C and maintain that progression. It's really up to you how you interpret that and how it works for you as well. So I'm checking any questions here. We're trying to keep these about 25, 30 minutes. So if you have any questions, feel free to comment and let me know what I can do to answer your questions for you. Obviously, these are all kind of set it and forget it settings. We're talking about that fall ratings book, things you can do to improve your rotations. That's in here as well. And I'll throw just one out there for you, just as a bonus if you want. Goals, priorities. In here, one of my favorite goals is the Airplay starvation. You might hear me say this a lot of times, and that's because essentially the Airplay starvation is going to be a way for you. Think of that, the numbers in the analysis window, right? You have essentially a category, the average spin is seven spins. And you have some that are 10, some that are 3. If I want to take that gap and bring it down just slightly, what I can do is a very quick fix for goal-based stations is Airplay starvation. Obviously, if you ever add a goal or a rule into the process, what you want to do is essentially, test it first, schedule 7 days, make sure it works. If it doesn't, you can go on from there. So just be aware of that. But it's a cool little goal. It's not a rule, it's a goal. That's why you can see here, I can right click. I can't make this unbreakable or breakable. I can only tie it above or below. So at that point in time, it's an on-off switch. You can set the settings over in Setup, Station, Features, Advanced. There's Airplay Starvation right here. It goes from 150 to 200. Think of that as rotations through the category. So 150 is 1.5 times through, 200 is 2 times through. And again, you're just telling GSelector that if I go through a category and I don't schedule you 1.5 times through, I want to give you a better score to get you into that position to get scheduled, just a higher score there. And again, I have a lot of users who kind of go and say, my category it's too broad, I need to get it more tight. That's a great quick way for goal-based stations to tighten that up, which is pretty cool as well. Last call for questions. Thomas, thank you for checking in as well. So again, just to review here, don't forget all our videos are on our archive, rcsworks.com/rcs-live. That's in for you as well. And of course, with more ratings, we have a lot of good stuff on the way. So just to review there, once again, we talked about the optimizations that can be found here: Setup, Station, Features, Advanced, and of course, the Enable Optimization options in there. Gio, thank you for checking in. I appreciate it, Gio. Hopefully that helped out a little bit. And again, by default, goals and then optimizations, right? By default in here, you do have legacy and then light is default, just so you know. So if you're worried like, oh no, I've been not doing this for the longest time, you really have. It's been there on the entire time. One thing also to note, if I decide to do the opposite and I say, hey, everybody, turn on MultiShot, turn on legacy, turn on strong, just be aware, this is a process. You're telling GSelector to do something. So when you do that process, GSelector is going to actually do it for you. So expect a little bit longer of the scheduling process. It's not that it's broken. It's just doing more work, right? If I'm telling GSelector to have a floating, a floating category between multiple different options in here, right? Then I'm going to expect GSelector to do the heavy lifting for me, but it's going to do that heavy lifting. It's going to go through each one of those songs and those categories and dig deep and go and look at that. So just be aware that if you're going to do that, give yourself an extra couple minutes, couple seconds, depending on your database, and that's going to go and enable that for you too. So, and yes, don't forget beta user as well. We have GSelector 490 Zeta 5.20.1. Both are about, I think my dates are, the GSelector beta is going to be, I think, October 14th, and the Zeta beta, I think, is a week after that for release, if I'm not mistaken. A lot of dates in my brain. So thank you so much for paying attention. As always, I'll be here next Thursday with some more exciting stuff. I am going to go fix my mic. I don't know why Windows broke it. But I will go and post some Facebook events for the upcoming ones. We have a lot of great stuff for the next 2 months or so, and that way you can RSVP ahead of time. And of course, always check these videos on our archive. So thank you so much for paying attention. I will see you next Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. It's RCS Live. See you in a bit. Bye-bye.